Good morning, everyone. It being 9:01 on Wednesday, April 9th, we'd like to call the Kane County Human Services Committee to order.
Garcia,
Garcia here.
Greif,
Right here.
Lewis,
Lewis here.
Tarver,
Tarver's here remote.
Linder,
Linder here.
Surges,
Present.
Roth.
Roth here.
Thank you. Remote attendance request by Mr. Tarver. Are we okay with that? Anybody opposed? Welcome. Approval of minutes. Mr. Linder, can I get a?
Sure, I will move.
Oh, we don't have any, correct. I'm so sorry. Yes, we do not have any from the last meeting.
Oh.
Public comment. I don't believe that we have anybody online or in person.
No.
Say nice to see, but that's okay. Monthly financial reports are on file. Guys, I'm zooming just a little bit because I want to get to a couple of heavy lift discussions. Department of Human Resource Management, Jamie, 7A through E. Unless we are uniquely out of tolerance on that, on anything, with the committee's approval, I would like to, unless we're out of tolerance and need to discuss something, I'd like to move forward, but I would like to look at the Blue Cross Blue Shield bill, which I thought last month had like a $300,000 spike on it. I would just like to see if those have come back in line or not.
It's still high. We did pull some records and there was an increase of claims for January and February. So we are on it's still in tolerance, but we're still on the higher side.
Okay. Is that when you say you pulled records and we're high, since our employee count hasn't really increased,
Thank you.
can we say that massively increased? Can we say that our claims count is unusually high for like if you compare
It spiked. Yeah,
February over February for the past 3 years,
right.
there is a spike.
There is a spike.
Is there a trend?
I think
All
influenza was really bad in January and February. So
Okay.
there was a spike in claims.
okay.
Excuse me, is it number of claims or dollars of claims? Oh, obviously dollars, but the number of claims.
Correct
So
number.
it's not just more expensive claims, but more claims.
And Mike, we tend to look at those frequency and severity. Has the frequency, meaning the number, increased, or is just the severity? So okay.
To add to, if you look at page 22, the claims, while
Can you
high,
zip us to 22?
the claims while high are not much higher than what we put in. It was intentional this year to try to get closer to the exact amount. We were really trying. Our reserve is healthy, so we're trying not to put any more money into that reserve right now. And so we did, work on estimating a closer balance to income versus expense. So if you see, there's really not a huge difference between what we brought in and what we paid out. It's a little high, but I would say that's why we would say it's not out of tolerance. It's an acceptable high.
Okay. So that's suggesting we're at 1.8 for this month?
Yeah, the red number is our invoice and the green number is what was essentially the revenue from employee and employer contributions to the plan.
Christine, if in my mind, is that number like a 1.4 number traditionally?
No,
Okay.
no.
It vacillates between about 1.3 and about 1.8, and that's
Okay.
fairly normal.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Anita, you had sent an email requesting some information regarding the Blue Cross Blue Shield rates. Did you get that? All I did was forward that. I did not reply, so.
Microphone, please.
Sorry. It's back under the new business when we're talking about the health plan
Okay.
because of the mental health for first responders.
Okay,
Yeah, I was just wondering about the cost of that. So we can do it when we get there.
perfect. Any other questions, Mr. Greip?
Just a future question, well, whatever. Is it possible that we could get
a 12-month rolling comparison to go with this?
So there's about 3 back years in the packet if you go into the previous
okay.
pages. So all the back years are in there. I think we're going back 3 years. We used to go back like 5, but those were COVID years and they were odd anyway.
Okay.
So I think we've got back to 2022 in the packet.
Yeah, a 1-year rolling 12, I've seen that is helpful to answer the question that.
We can certainly present it any way you want. It's done on a calendar year because our rates change on the first of the year. And so it's a new plan year. So we do present it as a plan year because each year is different in terms of rates.
Okay. Do you get any ICD-9 reports, procedure code things?
No, we actually, we specifically do not because we don't want that kind of detailed information on our employees. So we don't actually review any claim information that is, we get some de-identified aggregate information from our broker. So our broker receives that information, de-identifies it and aggregates it.
Yeah, well, I would hope it was never be personal, but I've seen reports that show like the top 10 ICD-9 codes.
Yes.
And you can tell if there's emerging trends or demerging trends or something like that.
Yes,
So if the broker has it, that might be.
Our broker has it. And if you let me know what kind of things you're looking for, we can have them prepare a report for
Yeah,
next
just
month.
like
Because
the
they do
top
collect
10
that for
maybe?
us. Yeah.
John, we've
absolutely
had
do
those
that.
just to let you know, we've had those in the past.
Mhm.
When we were with the consortium, if you will, we could not get that data from our HMO. So we kind of built it in-house.
Yep.
And when I say we, I of course mean our consultants, did that at their end. And it was pretty interesting, but then we kind of went into COVID and it was just, the data was
Yeah.
just so skewed. It didn't.
And we have an HMO and a PPO. With the HMO, because of the capitation model that they use, we lose anything that falls under capitation. But again, that's not impacting us beyond the capitation charge. So
And does everybody understand the term capitation?
It's when you take your head off, right?
Yeah, not decapitation. Capitation is if I'm gonna, and Jamie, let me do it, then you could correct me. So in the HMO, there are doctors that get paid a flat amount regardless of the number of patients they see. And that allows them to participate in the HMOs at a set cost. So that capitation rate just goes out and it's very constant. It's very difficult when you go back to them and say, well, how many patients did you see? And they don't exactly want to tell you because they don't want to justify it, and so Blue Cross made it difficult for us to get that out, but it's very difficult to see a trend when you have no data to build into your model. So we tried to do a little workaround with that. And again, John, the minute we got to COVID, the numbers were so skewed, the effort, it wasn't worth it any longer. So
Might be interesting. Now, just your comment made me think of something as well. Was there much of a shift between the HMO PPO allocations last year to this year enrollment wise?
no, I think it was pretty consistent. We added the HSA plan this year, which is
Yeah.
another type of PPO. So we did have some people move into that, but they generally moved from the regular PPO to the HSA, I think. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. So, ladies, thank you so much. We appreciate everything you do on this. And yeah, I mean, again, you make a report look easy and I know it is anything but. So thank you. Compliance training, how are we doing on the sexual harassment? I believe that's the only thing that we have out there.
That is the only training we have on there and people are getting on board. It's not due until August, but we actually, as you could see, already have over 1,000 employees who've taken it and it used to take us a lot of work to get there. So I think people they're used to it now.
Yeah, and again, for us, this has been a grooming effort to try and say the online training modules are a great resource. Let's continue to use those. And I think we can now report having several years under our belt.
Thank you.
It's not scary. I think they've adopted it and we could probably introduce a next platform as needed. So
Right. And
Yay.
we follow up on it. So that's made it, people know that we will follow up on them repeatedly until they do it. So they know they're going to have to do it. So they just get it out of the way now. and
we
It
go.
gets done
There
pretty
we
early.
go. It's not scary. Okay. Item 9, old business. Regretfully, I do not have all of my paperwork. I left my binder today. But in that binder, I had a group of subcommittees, if you will, ad hoc committees that we were possibly working on. And Mr. Gripe, I think you were heading up one of those. Could you refresh me on what that is called and what we are doing?
Well, there's kind of two. I don't know that I was leading either.
You're really
or both.
smart and I like you, so go ahead.
Yeah. One was for ethics. Just kind of coming up with a program to help assure ethical behavior in Kane County government. And the second was for performance goals, how we can help department heads participate in performance goals. And so the capable folks in the beige over there are working very well on this. And we know they have many, many other things, but we've gotten input from Will County, DuPage County, Kendall County, bunch of other resources to help us not to have to reinvent the wheel. So we're feeding that to the machine as the machine can handle the input. And I'm very optimistic about what will come out of it.
John, I think the most important thing in my mind on this is that we continue to build a bridge with our department heads that is based on cooperation and not based on fear. I think that last week we had the Special Human Services Committee where department heads were invited to be here. And it was, I went on a stretch and verbalized that, I have personal relationships that I think I've built with many of these department heads to say, at some point we have to trust each other and make a jump and communicate and not be afraid of each other. And I'm hoping that this performance goals is viewed in that same light. This is us trying to help. This is us trying to mature. This is us trying to build a pathway. And I think their input is just as important as our input. Who do you have helping you and assisting on this?
Right now, the HR folks, Ms. Juby has been helping a bit and Sonia has offered to help. So we're just kind of baby stepping our way through it. But once we have something to consider, I'm sure the volume will pick up. But I think you make an excellent point in that if I worked for 24 bosses and I didn't have any written performance expectations, I'd be freaked.
Yep.
Because if those 24 people like me, I'm going to be okay. If they don't like me, I have no written ability to say, this is what my expectations are, and I know how I can exceed them. So we're very optimistic about this being a participatory exercise.
Thank you so much. So Sonia and Leslie, in addition to this, in one of the ad hocs, if you will, that I was asked to sit in on when we were hiring an executive director, the individual, one of the young men that was coming possibly to us from Aurora University and was looking at a job here and ultimately backed away from it. And when I questioned him and said, what was the problem? He goes, easy. At Aurora University, I had one boss. Here, I feel like we have 24. And that really drove home to me like, okay, that's unusual. That's so coming up with something like this to me is, let's just take it out of the closet and put a flashlight on it and figure it out. So just for what that's worth. Are we good? Okay.
Yep.
Madam Chair?
If I may, thank you.
Anytime I say something and John leans over, it makes me feel like I just said something I shouldn't have said. So I'm just making sure we're good. Did I just say Aurora University and I'm in a bucket of shit? I mean, sorry.
Oh, come on.
Oh, sorry about that. Oops.
No, excuse me. Aurora University is a very outstanding institution and one we all support. It's the subcommittee, and I'd like to thank you, Ms. Juby, because reminding us that we have to always check our Bible before we go to church to make sure we're praying for the right thing, if I may, following the rules. So it says here, and I believe I have the most recent version of 2-48 because it's gone through reiterations.
Madam
s-
Chair, can you get closer
Oh.
to the mic, please?
No. Yeah, how's that? Is that better?
There you go.
Better.
Oh, very
Yep.
good. Okay, so with subcommittees, and I don't have a page number on my document, but it says the formation of a subcommittee, all right? Do you want the subcommittee? Requires a majority vote of the standing committee or county board and shall consist of 3 or more members. So if you move forward on whatever that subcommittee may be, whether it's for personnel, or whatever, we have to make sure we take it to this committee for approval and most likely to the full board to authorize that. If you so
John,
choose.
if I can tap you on the shoulder, we're not really interested, at least me personally, in getting into the semantics and making, all we're trying to do is be able to meet without breaching the Open Meetings Act. So we don't care if it's an ad hoc, a sub, a meeting. We're just trying to do it the right way that would allow more than 2 of us to meet and have a discussion. John, am I mistaken on
Yeah,
that?
no, you're not. And so I'll credit Jamie with when we started talking about who's going to talk about what, ethics, performance, whatever it is, who's involved, what committees they're on, how many of us are getting together, if we need special approval of any other body, if we have to file a Form X-250 with, all of that stuff. And Jamie's been very helpful in saying you can have this discussion this way. If you take this discussion this way, you need to get formal approval. You need to, so whatever we call the committees, whatever, we're trying to do the work in an appropriate, proper, legal, code minding way, but get the work done that needs to be done. So everybody's right.
Right
So if-
now, it's just a work group. It's not any kind of established subcommittee or ad hoc committee or anything like that. It's a work group from people of different committees, so
I
there is
see
no
both.
open
Hang on.
meetings violation.
If I could ask you 2 professionals, and for those online, Jamie and John, to just put your heads together and protect us from ourselves. You
Well,
know
I
what I'm
mean,
saying?
so here's my question for you.
Okay,
Exactly are you looking to do?
not break rules.
No. Substantively, not procedurally, substantively. What things are you looking to talk about? Is this like a particular focus? Is there a substance focus?
Well, in this case, performance goals for department heads.
Okay.
It's very specific.
So the easiest and fastest way to ever have this kind of a conversation where you have 0 issues with OMA or any other issues is to simply 20 or 48 hours before you have the meeting, wherever it may be, just simply let it be put on an agenda, single line discussion of blank. Post it.
By whom, I guess, is the question. Leslie is going nuts over here. So
I am, because I have to clarify, Sonia and I are not working on the same work group as John and I are working on. We are not violating Open Meetings Act. We are not a subcommittee. We're not an ad hoc. We are a work group that is taking over for the 2 items that the chair wanted to have. He wanted to determine if we had something available to review our executive directors, which is the committee, which is the working group that I met with Jamie on. And then I'm not sure what Sonia and he are working with, but we are not in violation of open meeting. We are not an ad hoc, and we are not.
I wasn't suggesting that anybody was. I'm trying to figure out what all of you are even doing. So a subcommittee requires 3 or more members. So if you're meeting 3 or more members, then yeah, you do need to be thinking about subcommittees and ad hoc committees. Or the easiest way to do it is just hold a special meeting with this group, and whoever shows up doesn't show up. Even if you don't have a quorum, you can still have a discussion. You just can't take votes. And so
But
the
that-
question for all of
wait,
you
you're
is,
shaking your head. Are you in disagreement with that
No,
or?
I'm in agreement with that. I'm just,
Okay.
it's not what's happening. What's happening is it was a work group where it was
Fine, yeah.
just one other board member each time.
if there's only 2 people, you can
There are
never be
only
in
2
violation.
people.
You
Yeah,
can
but
never be in
I can't
violation of
guarantee
OMA.
that, because if there's something that we all want to participate in, the whole point was to be able to share and allow.
Until this, I'm sorry.
No, Sonia, go
until
ahead,
this-
please.
We haven't had more than 3 people.
So the only other thing I'll caution everybody is the sequential meetings. So if you have two people meet and then magically one of those two people immediately goes over and has another meeting with another person and then another person and another person, and you daisy chain this thing, that's effectively a meeting. So I mean, if it truly is separate, that's not a problem. But if you want to have a larger dialogue between three or more of you, you have to call something. I don't care what it is.
That's fine.
Um,
And John, I will challenge you as the ringleader, if you will, to work with Jamie to make sure that we're following those rules. Is that fair?
And she's been absolutely perfunctorily wonderful in
Oh.
this.
Perfect. Mr. Roth, you had a hand up?
It was just a clarification. You were asking Mr. Frank for the opinion and Mr. Gripe spoke. Was that correct? Or,
I'm okay with everything.
yeah, I know. I just, and
Okay.
it got resolved, so non-issue.
Perfect. Thank you. John, do you need anything from us? Is there anything that we can, or just kind of?
Not yet.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you so much. And with the ethics, my opinion is we were trying to really make something way more, way more than we needed at this time. We don't have a problem with the ethics but I think Madam Chair's goal was to make this a more formalized process or committee. Am I
Well,
mistaken there?
And again, I apologize. I don't have the resolution in the file upstairs. But the board has already passed that. And I've asked Jamie and Julie to put together a description to put out to the public, because I believe it said that we should have outside people, not internal. It's hard to judge our own ethics if we're the ones who are being judged for an ethics violation. So it's better to have somebody external who's appropriate, minister, whatever, retired judge,
Right,
et cetera,
yeah.
et cetera. So, but that has got to go out. But they have been swamped. This lady has been swamped with
Agreed.
so many things.
And again, I think this ethics situation is one of those where we'd rather have it and not use it than need it and not have it sort of thing. Is that fair to say? Okay. John, thank you so much. I appreciate your leadership and your time on that. If we could go to new business, item 10. I think we have 4 items here to discuss, and I'm just going to verbalize. I hate that clock's not there. It is so hard to keep track of your meeting. And I keep sitting it and going, okay, are we doing on time?
It's 9:23.
9:23, yes. Resolution authorizing updates to the county's health plan. Could I have a motion for that, Mr. Linder?
I would move my microphone on. Yes, I would move the resolution authorizing updates to the county's health plan.
Ms. Garcia, if you could second, we'll open for discussion.
I do a second.
Okay, Jamie, could you describe what we're doing here?
Yes, there was a recent statutory change that requires that first dollar coverage for mental health care be given to all first responders. We talked about this a little last month. We did some research. According to Blue Cross, 99% of their Illinois municipalities adding this to their full plan for all employees, because it's not administratively feasible to separate it out for some employees. You have to develop an entire new health plan for that. It doesn't make a lot of sense. We did ask them for an estimate on what this would cost. They don't really have that because they're inundated with hundreds of municipalities making this change right now. So they don't have any figures. They said they would have something for us next week. So if you move this on to finance, I should have that information for you by the time we get to finance committee. But we have a very healthy reserve in the health insurance fund. So that charge would be absorbed by our health insurance fund and would become a part of rates next year. So you don't think you have any, I don't have any concerns that there would be any financial impact to the county this year.
Okay, thank you. And as a political comment on this, I think yesterday somebody at the meeting had mentioned, it is becoming overwhelming, the amount of unfunded mandates that Springfield is pushing on us. And this again is one that, with the very best of intentions, honestly, the best of intentions, but you have to roll this out. You eat that elephant one bite at a time, and to just say you have to do this, if Blue Cross Blue Shield can't figure it out in a timely manner, there had to be a better way to do this. And again, that's not a That's not a statement generalizing that diminishing how important this is. It is critical. But gosh darn it, could we just implement these a little bit easier, a little bit smarter? So at this point in time, we are suggesting this is a housekeeping, that we don't have a choice, that we are mandating this forward. Anita, I think you've answered your questions. We don't have the figures.
You didn't answer my question.
Okay, go ahead.
To see.
Go
is-
into your microphone though.
Sorry. Yeah, I understand it's mandated for the first responders. And I do want to know what that costs, even though we have to do it. But secondly, we are going to give this to all employees, which I'm not against, but I'd like to see what's it going to cost for what's mandated, and then what are we additionally going to do because it makes sense. So no, I haven't got my questions answered.
Right, but
And we
to be
requested that
specific, the
immediately. They
answer
just cannot
was-
give it to us yet.
Yeah,
No, but I'm
the answer
saying-
is we don't have it. That's
Right.
your answer, but we will
Yes.
get it as soon as it's available. So we are answering that very succinct.
We have to pass this to finance this month, or can we wait till we get the answers in this committee and then pass it next month?
I would recommend you at least move it to finance. At this point, June 1st is the effective date and it's already April, and we have to pass it before Blue Cross can start making the changes to the health plan. So to make sure we can be compliant with the law, I would state you're probably better off passing it, but it's certainly a choice for this board.
Anybody else on the committee with a question? And then Ms. Gums, I'll come to you. John?
Thank you. A bunch of questions that don't necessarily have to be answered right now, but I'm reading in the bottom of the second paragraph. Let's see, county employee, first responder without imposing a deductible, co-payment or other cost sharing requirement on the coverage provided, except that this subsection does not apply to the extent such coverage would disqualify a high deductible health plan from eligibility for a health savings account pursuant to the Internal Revenue Code. So, and again, I don't need an answer right now, but that kind of says to me that if this benefit blows up part of the HSA, there's a problem.
Right. It will not be added to the HSA because you cannot legally do that and have an HSA because of IRS rules. So at the bottom, the therefore paragraph, it's only added to the HMO and the regular PPO plan
Okay.
because we cannot add it to the HSA. It
Well,
won't be,
Did
it
we
won't
add
be
that
HSA
portion
anymore.
or was that added at the Springfield level?
That was added at the Springfield level. Mhm.
So if
Because
I'm
it's an
in-
IRS rule.
So if I'm a first responder, I can't be in the HSA.
Not if you would like first dollar coverage. You can, but you're choosing that, right?
Right.
So the employee would need to choose one of the other two plans.
So if we have first responders in the HSA plan, they will need to disenroll and go back to the PPO?
They would like to. That's a choice they can make. So
Right.
the state doesn't mandate it in our HMO plan, only in our regular plans, and that we offer those plans. So we would give anyone in the HSA PPO an opportunity to enroll in the regular PPO if they would like.
And kind of follow up, and this goes to Anita's question. In my human resource benefit broker days, we'd get questions like this all the time. If we remove the deductible for X, or if we provided Y, what's the cost? And when I was on the carrier side of things, we had to give them a number. So we'd have the actuaries run this through. So this isn't your job, but I'm saying that Blue Cross should be able to say, if we remove the deductible on this portion of enrolled, so we know who the population is, what would the cost be? And that should be able to, with somewhat calculation effort, answer Anita's question, I would think.
So as far as how much would it cost if we just added it to the first responders, because they're not currently in a separate group within the health plan, Blue Cross doesn't know which people they are unless they were to go through and hand look up each person because we provided a list of names. So currently in the system, they're not flagged different. That's not a identifier in our system right now, the way they have defined first responder. So as far as Blue Cross goes, all of our employees are the same. You know, you could tell them how much for, you know, you could split it by gender, age, anything that's an identifier that they currently hold. But first responder is not a current identifier within the plan. So all they can do is make an estimate based on a number of headcount. So we can say there's X number of headcount that are first responders, and they would be looking at the total cost and dividing by those number by that number. So it
John,
would be a
sim-
general
Similar
estimate,
to
not a
Anita,
specific one.
could you put yours in writing in an email to me and Jamie? And then Jamie, could you be prepared to answer that at finance?
Assuming that Blue Cross
Assuming
provides
we
us
take
that
a vote right
information,
now and
yes.
it moves forward, just be prepared to answer that.
Yes.
But it will be in the other committee and we asked Mr. Berman to allow that if he would.
Yes, we
Would that be
do
fair?
already have our request into Blue Cross for those estimates. So it's on them to actually provide that estimate to us.
Yeah, okay.
And their estimate was they would have that to us next week, but they are inundated with every municipality in this state.
Yeah, I can't imagine what they're.
Well, because we'll need to know who those people are to enroll or give them a choice, right?
Right. We would have to establish a whole new health plan and move those people into a different health plan in order to do this, because you cannot make a difference in coverage within a health plan. So you can't say these people have this kind of coverage and these people have this coverage. It has to be the same for all participants. So if you were to do this, you would have to actually create a whole new health plan for those people. And then you'd have to offer it just to them and their families. There would be no way to offer it just to
Ken,
the
the
subscriber.
greatest of intentions, just
Thank you.
logistically tough.
And
Michelle, you
mid-year
had,
effective is
I'm sorry,
difficult
Jen.
too. So it's mid-year effective, which is another challenge.
Ms. Gums?
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate just one more time that the tenets of this county should be to always reject unfunded mandates. I think we've come to that consensus, and at the legislative level, we'll continue to fight those battles.
You're the best. Thanks.
Right.
Any other questions on this? Oh, yes, let's,
Amy, I know that we're like midterm and we talk about it that probably next year we can go ahead and adjust or look for something else. Have we looked for like an external contractor that can help or provide those services and doesn't have to go through look, I know that right now because of the time, but I know that there's services out there that they can come and provide that and we can offer that at lower cost than the insurance.
So we already have an EAP that does provide some of that, but the law specifically mandates that it be a part of our health plan.
Deb, go ahead.
How is
John?
Alan, how is what we have right now different? Because we have this wonderful resource that people can turn to. Is that a service that is somehow not in our health plan?
It has a copay. That's the only issue. We do cover mental health services. There's just a copay. So this has to be without copay or deductible. So we do already cover it. It has a copay. So that's where your added cost is. Instead of there being a copay, the health plan would pick up the whole amount.
Okay.
Mr. Chair Gums.
One second, Ms. Gums.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just when it comes to first responders, just a little history on that is even though we offer that EAP, a lot of the first responders are not comfortable with that program for a myriad of different reasons, just so you're aware.
Deb looks perplexed. I know.
EAP? Yes, good.
Yes, so first responders are historically not comfortable with the what we offer because it can be they don't believe like it's independent. They don't think it's anonymous, just so you're aware. So whether that's true or not is one thing, but perception is their reality.
It's a part of our contract that we do not get any information as to the participants who have called. So we don't even know who has called. The only thing we can get from them is a number of calls that they had. It's in our contract. I don't know how to prove to people that that's
Right.
true. They can read the contract. We don't get anything from them. It's more anonymous than your health plan. We're self-insured. We get the claims. We don't look at them, but we have a legal right to them. We don't, but it is the most anonymous way. So
I
you know.
don't disagree with you, Jamie. I'm just telling you what perception is that I wanted to point that out. So I think that's how we got here.
Thank you. Thank you. Anita?
Yeah, so I guess this is actually kind of for Michelle, but this went into law August 9th of last year. Did we just kind of like miss this? Because now we're saying that Blue Cross and Blue Shield is scrambling, but if we knew back in August of last year, you would think that they would have been working, towards this. I mean, they did
Yes,
give us
so-
quite a bit of time, almost a year.
So Anita, to your point, it was not on my radar. So
Okay,
I missed it. I don't know if anybody else in the realm missed it, but I missed it.
Yeah, I hadn't heard anything either in all the stuff that we, hear.
Jamie, chime in on that.
Usually I get some kind of notice on these other than I'm subscribed to getting legal changes that impact human resources going into effect this year. And so about the turn of the year is when I found out about it from a notification system that I have set up to catch these things. It just didn't get a lot of press. And it's just one of those things that usually someone, somewhere along the way, I usually come across these in conversations that I have or in meetings I attend. This one didn't. It came through in my here's changes happening in your state this year notification system. So, and our broker knew about it. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against, giving this to our first responders by any means, but I just want to know the cost, because if we're talking about now we're giving it to first responders, their families and all employees and their families, seems to me like it is going to be, some money, even if it's in our, even if we have resources or, reserves for it, it's still,
Yeah, as soon as it's
I'm just
available.
uncomfortable. Let's put it
Oh, the
that
whole
way.
thing's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Myrna? Oh, I'm sorry, John, did you,
No, no,
a
no.
member of the committee first?
Let her go. Let her
Myrna, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question. I just remembered back in January, the sheriff's office hired a wellness coordinator because I believe it was because of the similar statute where we have an intergovernmental agreement with Kendall County to provide mental health resources for the employees. Is this the same service that we're trying to cover, or is this under a different statute? I'm not sure if Jamie knows the answer to that.
I'm not sure what the sheriff's plan was, but this statute specifically states it has to be a part of our health plan. So if that was, we have long tried, we've worked with KingCom as well to get mental health services, and they have a separate system that they have to specifically first responder counseling center that's designed specifically to first responders that their employees can utilize. So it's not that this wasn't a service that we provided to our first responders. We did, but this law specifically mandates it become a part of our health plan. That's why we're making this change.
Yeah, Myrna, I thought we were in compliance with what we had, in all honesty, until Jamie goes, did you read it? And I mean, it says it needs to be part of the health plan, which kind of kicked us back to where we are today. So, John?
Back to Anita, very helpful questions, Anita, because I was wondering if this includes first responders or first responders and families. And I would say, reading this, it says, adding a provision requiring mental health counseling for any county employee who is a first responder without having blah, 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 which I'm not John Frank, but I would say that that means first responders only and not dependents and not spouses and so forth and so on.
You're correct. That's just not how health plans work. Everyone that's in the health plan gets the same benefits. So again, you would have to then put first responders in one health plan and their families in another. Again, this, when they wrote this law, I don't know that they had that knowledge of how that would impact the greater health plan, but that's just not how health plans work. So again, you would have to create a health plan specifically for those employees and put their families in a completely different health plan.
With all the conversation, I appreciate it. And with the knowledge that Jamie and her team will be working to bring this to maturity, but discussing it in finance, because we do have a June 1st deadline on this, I would like to call the vote to move this forward.
Thank you.
Allen,
Alan,
Garcia,
Yeah, I.
Gripe,
Gripe, yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Tarver,
Tarver, yes.
Linder,
Yes.
Sturgis.
Surges, yes. Thank you. Item B, classification discussion. Jamie, I'm going to let you open this up. And how much time do you need on this?
Just 5 minutes. Just in the previous discussion we had in the Special Human Services Committee, a lot of the department heads had brought up that they can't reorganize their departments without a long involved process. So I just wanted the committee's opinion on if there's not really the intent of the section regarding reclassifications, which would be like reorganizing and changing grades, is that only if there is an aggregate increase in total grades, would that require county board approval, because then you're essentially increasing the salary of your departments if the aggregate grades go up. Beyond that, they can send it to us. We can grade the new sets of positions. So it would require them to write job descriptions that are current with their current structure, and have human resources grade those positions as long as the aggregate wasn't higher, that wouldn't require board approval. So in terms of reorganizing to reduce overall salaries, they'd be able to do that. However, if the board wants to review those, I shouldn't say continue, if the board wants to review all reorganizations, you certainly can. I guess I'm just looking for this committee's direction. Do you want me to rewrite that section to make it more clear? Do you want it to stay the way it is? Do you want to make it so that it doesn't have to go to the board to reorganize? Just whatever the board wants, we will put into that section. So I wasn't sure if there was feedback on that.
If I can kick in, again, an unintended consequence is not always a bad thing. So we had a pizza party last Monday for the special meeting, and what came out of that was loud and clear, at least to me, from the department heads that, hey, listen, if I lose a person, and I'm just going to spit out, monopoly money here. If we lose a person at $100,000 and I want to replace, and I don't want to replace that person, but I do have their job responsibilities. So if I spread out some of their responsibilities across 4 other people and I offer them a stipend, as long as the math does not go past the original $100,000 and the county is to a betterment on that, do you really, as a board, and I know we are a microcosm of that board, do you really want to get in the weeds with your department heads to figure that out? Or, because Deb, I saw you and I do not want to either. As long as that's to our betterment, yay. But if somebody is coming saying, hey, I have to reorg my department and I'm going to go well beyond that $100,000, well, we're in a little bit of a financial pickle right now, and maybe we should bring that back and have that conversation within the host committee of that department. Jamie, am I describing that even remotely close?
Yes. So right now you don't need board approval for that, or at least that was the intent, but there seems to be a misunderstanding. So I can, try to rewrite it for clarity with the same intent behind it, or I can change the intent behind it if you want it to be different. Ultimately that's where I'm looking for this committee's feedback to what do you want it to be? Where?
Wait a second, Roger, are you okay with that? Was my explanation not good? I just saw you get up and leave shaking your head. I was just like, wait a minute. Did I say, because I was patterning that off of you and Michael going, did I just say that wrong?
I'm just going to offer that there was never a defined process for how you manage change in a department subsequent to the policy or the ordinance being passed. So to expect that somehow it was a misunderstanding, it's not. We had even suggested that maybe a list of changes come forward to the county board as like a warrant list of, hey, here's all the changes that are happening in the departments, just so the board could see all of those. I think the problem for the last year is trying to determine what's the process, what's the paperwork, what's the workflow for making a change like this, and not having it, well defined. We have a situation right now where we want to offer a position to a person. They're going to absorb additional responsibilities. The compensation for that position is probably $7,000 too low, but in absorbing other people's work or other work that was going to be done by a second hire, we'd like to change their compensation. Well, that would push their salary higher than what the 75th percentile is, which means we either do the regrading, which obviously will take more paperwork and more time. We need to hire the person or offer them the job. They're not going to sit forever while we do this process. So some of these things need like better defined processes up front that you can follow and execute in a timely manner in order to hire people that you need to hire or to make changes that you need to change. In the absence of that, you're dealing with months of time before you can effectively make that change. And that's the only thing I get frustrated about is
So the,
that
fr- so,
the
so,
timing of it and the paperwork and the follow all the due process.
so the
um,
conversation today is specifically
Yeah,
to give guidelines to clear that logjam. Am I mistaken on that?
Correct, right?
Yeah.
So right now.
So I'm
what
hearing
he's-
you saying we're
Yeah.
responding. I'm hearing you saying,
Yep.
I think we got it. Will it be perfect? Nope. Might we
Yeah.
have to tweak it
So-
continually? Nope. Is it better than it was 2 years ago? Yep. But is it
Yeah.
perfect? We're better,
yeah.
you know? so-
I guess my frustration is hearing, we can redo job descriptions and we could submit and do all those things. I don't understand how the steps in the process are there 2, 3 steps? How long do they take? What do we have to do to kind of finalize those in a formal way? So sometimes we'll make assumptions about that, and that's why you might see something come into committee because we see no other alternative rather than bringing it to committee and waiting for, the time to get responses back or to figure this out. We're all very busy people. Jamie, I appreciate everything she does. She's very busy too. And then ultimately to have it come back to committee. And then it goes.
And
through-
that's what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah,
That's
and
what
then it
I'm
goes
trying
through
to
2
avoid, is
months
to
of
say it doesn't
committee.
need to come back to
and-
us if you
Yeah.
haven't reached that
So-
threshold and you're shuffling your deck. Why would you
Yeah.
bring it back to us?
Unfortunately, our committee meets right after HR, so it means we wait another month to get to HR.
But I
We'll
think
have a special
Yeah.
meeting.
That's
ultimately-
a challenge.
I
too.
see lots of hands up. We're going to
Go
come
ahead.
around. I just want,
Okay.
Roger, when you get up that fast, I'm going to pay attention and say, no,
Sorry.
what was the point of having, a party and talking if we were not going to listen? So I didn't
Thank
want you
you.
to leave without,
You're fine.
I hear you, my friend.
And that
So-
is my question. It ultimately, so when that happened at that special meeting, that was the first I'd heard that there was an issue with it. So I wasn't aware prior to that. So that's why I wanted to bring it back for a discussion. Do you want me to work on clarifying that process? Do you want the process as a part of the policy? Right now, the policy is a little more general about just if you need board approval or not, and it doesn't define the full process because the whole policy was new. We had no compensation policy before. So we certainly can work with departments and then further define that process if you would like us to.
Okay, let's go around the horn. Anita, you had your hand up first. I'm sorry. Sonia, you had your hand up first. I looked here and pointed there. I apologize. I know. But you're both so lovely. It was right. How's that?
Hearing Roger talking, I know how frustrated it is. And I know that as much as we get here together and try to figure things out, we're not going to do it until we have the process and the systems down in a paper. So otherwise we'll continue with this and this and this and this. And I'm not saying that we need to reshape, but we need to understand that we need to go ahead and have that people working. And what's going to happen is he needs it right now. We're going to go ahead and vote. And then 3 months later, or 6 months later, we're all going to be complaining, did we miss it? What happened? What did we did? Why we didn't have it? So I think we have to go ahead and start working on it. If we need to make a decision right now, we have to go ahead and do it, making conscious that we do not have anything in paper. So 6 months, 9 months from now, we do not have to be complaining. Otherwise, we have to go ahead and start working on what we need to do. Right? So I just want to make sure that if we need to make a decision right now, let's go ahead and do it. Be conscious that we do not have anything in writing. We do not have any systems and process. And whatever the decision is, 9 months later, we can't be complaining because we're not doing what we have to do on the other side.
Not only can we, they will. So
Well, if we will, I always said, as long as we all talk and we know, and we have this conversation, we're going to be okay because we're going to agree and disagree. But as long as we talk about it, I'm perfectly fine,
folks on this side, Deb?
Alan, I think that a couple of years ago, we put together, well, we didn't, Jamie and her staff put together a great effort, an equity study. And a number of us thought that equity study's goals were to find the low-hanging fruit, the secretaries who were paid $12 an hour in some place and $15 an hour in another place. And our goal was to try and raise that standard so that our people were getting somewhere near a livable wage. Now, I think an unintended consequence that came out of that was that we have somehow limited the authority of the executive directors that we pay to run their departments, that they now feel that they can't make the decisions that they used to make, because if they need to adjust people within their departments to, as you say, pick up the workload of someone who left and compensate accordingly, they are not able to do that in the way that they used to. They have to now juggle some balls in the air and clear things with human resources that they used to do on their own, or maybe through committee. And then I have at least 2 instances of people saying, of executive directors saying, we lose someone, goes to get a better job or something, it's paying 100,000, but the next person who comes in, I can't offer them 100,000. I have to offer them a percentage of the salary scale, and it's less, but I'm hoping to hire the $100,000 person, but I can't. I can only offer 75% or something like that. And those people are people who are desirable. So if the range is 100,000, I need to be able to offer them 100,000, and I cannot. So is there a way to get over that? Can human resources?
Yeah, that process in play. And just to respond to you, because we're going to run out of time here, but to respond to you succinctly,
good.
The equity study was not just about the low hanging fruit.
Right.
It was to create a management document to run this county for the internal basis. The portion that we're dealing with now, we are simply refining. We've listened, we've heard it, we've said, okay, we're in a little bit different situation financially than we were, and maybe so we saw that coming, and this was a tool to help with that. But to not respond to the concerns that we're hearing is just ignorant. And we hear those concerns loud and clear. But if the concern was to say, we don't want that 25% threshold at the top, if you will, without pumping the brakes and talking about it, we have that clearly outlined on how to handle it. Maybe not everybody likes it, but it is outlined. And what we're suggesting here in the shuffling of responsibilities and slight pay, what we're specifically responding to from Jamie today is to say, if it doesn't crack the barrier, why is it coming to us? What difference do we have being in the weeds? Is that what you were elected for? You were elected to set policy, not be in the weeds. So what we're saying is, let's let them do their job. But if you're going to go over a threshold that you as a policymaker have said, here's the threshold, then you're going to have to come back to your host committee, okay, and state your case. But if you're staying under that threshold, shuffle that deck to the best of your ability and trust our department heads, our executive directors. Am I using those? Jamie, again, I don't want to speak and defend if I'm wrong. So
no, you're absolutely correct. And I just wanted to add another clarification, just the purpose of the equity study. We're a single employer and we have an obligation to be equitable across our departments. So if each department head is acting fully independently, there is no standard by which, you know, you say, well, this is worth 7,000 more, and maybe this other department thinks it's worth 20,000 more, that we lose our ability to act with standard as an employer. So we need to make sure that there is an employer-wide management system to make sure that all departments are playing by the same set of rules. Certainly they should be making their decisions on who they want to hire. But when it comes to how much is paid, that there needs to be some county-wide management of that with some flexibility within it. So that is part of the reason that we wanted to establish a county-wide classification system. This is something that literally every other one of the collar counties has in place. It is a normal way to operate. And it's important to make sure that we're acting, that all of our departments are given absolutely the same abilities to provide those raises. In our old system, larger departments that had more turnover and had vacancies had more opportunity to give raises. and increase salaries than the smaller departments, giving them a benefit and an ability to escalate their salaries in a way some of the smaller departments were not able to, which created a lot of inequities. So I believe everyone was acting in good faith. I don't think you had any kind of discrimination or anything happening. Everybody was doing their best. It's just larger departments had more resources because they were able to increase their annualized salaries through the use of their vacancies.
Madam Chair, you've been very patient with your hands gone up about 14 times. Yes.
Thank you. I'm going back to 2-48 again. I was taking a look at it last night when I got home because I was preparing for our meeting today. What you said previously, I totally in agreement with, because that is what exactly is saying in 2-48 for each standing committee. So basically what it says is that, my reader's on, that it is the job.
Speak into that mic.
HR is different because it's an omnibus taking care of all of our employees, right? But within our jurisdiction as government, each standing committee of the county board shall exercise extreme diligence in supervising expenditures of the office, departments, or functions under their jurisdiction with a view of holding such expenditures within the limits established by the county budget. So exactly what you said, sir. So yes, it's important for each one of our committees, whether it be building management, and IT, transportation, et cetera, that once that budget is established, that they have to maintain jurisdiction over that budget and cannot go over. And if they need to go over, it has to be presented to the standing committee for their approval. I understand, and I think we've all have heard from some of our executive directors, the difficulty of getting everything processed in an expedient manner so that they can hire good people. They almost have to be prepared without having the individual having the opportunity to hire somebody, whoever that somebody may be, to put the paperwork in process without having the opportunity to actually interview the individuals that they would like to hire and then getting that salary negotiated appropriately. They're stymied. And I'm not saying I've been complete support of the personnel policy that we put forward with the salaries. I advocated for that. I think it's a great idea, but that flexibility to be able to work with each department is really the jurisdiction of each standing committee, as long as they don't go over their appropriate budget for that. It's what the code says. Or my reading of the code.
I would love to move this to a vote if we can.
There's nothing that we have that needs to be voted on.
I'm
This was just a
sorry.
discussion item.
This was open for discussion. What are you looking for?
I was just looking from a consensus of this committee, if you would like me to open that section and write it with more detail.
Can we give her that consent? I think I'm hearing loud and clear that yes, we should continue this. If this was a chink in the armor, beef it up. Is that fair?
Sure.
Was there anything else that need to be at? Go ahead, Deb.
I just wanted to say that when we rolled this out, we knew there'd be ripples in the pond.
Yeah.
And we have been waiting for an opportunity to address the ripples. So I think this is addressing the ripples. I am not aware in the 2 instances that I ran into of those problems coming to their committee. Never got that far. So somehow we just need to smooth this out. We pay our executive directors, I think, a lot, though in the private world, it probably is not a lot. But I want to have confidence in those people that we've hired and the responsibilities we've given them. And when they're frustrated, it floats up to us. And our jobs, our policies and budgets, we want to smooth out that frustration.
Deb, I appreciate that so much. And Sonia, please know, you know, as the newest member of the group, the speed to which we hire is so much more improved than where it was, yet we're not there yet. You know what I mean? So I'd love to pat ourselves on the back and say, yes, but like if we were trying to get from 1 to 10, we're like at a 5, you know, and we still have so much more to do. And this is just another, we'll continue to get there, but the road just keeps getting tougher. Mike, you had a question, and then we have 2 more things and we're pushing 10 o'clock right now.
I'll be quick. I just want to emphasize the first half of what Corinne said. Somehow or another, that committee needs to be involved. If there's a change, a permanent change in headcount, even if the dollars stay the same, the committee should know about it, maybe approve, maybe not, but should know about it. And if there is going to be a request for dollar change, the committee should be involved in that. It should not be rocketed upward.
Jamie, is there anything that you're working on that addresses that at all? Or is that solely at the discretion of the executive director?
So if there's a change in dollar figure, if there's, I'm sorry, an increase in dollars, if there's any kind of budget adjustment needed, it has to go through the board process. And that's always been that way. And I don't believe that that will ever change, because you're talking about changing how much money is in a budget, right? So if there's any increase in the dollars needed, that always requires a budget adjustment, which has to go through the board process. What we're talking about here is reclassifications. So the reclassifications don't necessarily translate to dollars.
So
if
to,
you have
to answer
vacancies.
Mike's
And that's
question,
why I said headcount. I'm concerned about that as well.
yeah,
Right.
Mike is suggesting that executive director has the responsibility to notify the committee of what they're doing, their host committee of what they're doing.
If there's an increase in headcount, yes. So ultimately it does not.
if there's just a
require that
juggle,
full
Mike.
Decrease, they can eliminate a position.
That decrease in headcount most likely includes a restoration of that headcount next budget cycle. So I think the committee still needs to be involved.
So I don't know. So consensus, I don't know how you build that into what you were describing, but I think those are apples and oranges. Am I?
It's a part of reorganization, right? But it's certainly something I can build a couple of options, for this committee to discuss next month.
When you build that, would you start with Linder
Certainly.
and kick that back and forth? And if you're satisfied with that, let's bring it back for discussion. Is that fair?
That's fair. Yeah.
Okay.
Mr.
Right.
Chairman, Bates, please.
1 second, Ms. Bates, let me a member of the committee first, and then we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think that'd be great, Jamie, to come back with something, but if I can analogize this, that I think what we need.
You spell that?
No.
Okay.
At any rate, what we need is not more gears in the machine. What we need is to have the existing gears work more smoothly.
Absolutely.
And so grease is not a great word, but what we're looking for is not more detail other than the ability to get what we do now to work better. So that's what I'm looking forward to, and it's in very good hands.
Thank you. I'm sorry, was that Ms. Bates?
That was Ms. Bates. Thank you.
Okay.
I want to just to add my approval and consensus to all the things Roger said and Deb, and that whenever possible, I think the department head should be, the buck should stop there as much as possible.
Perfect. Jamie, I think you have what you need.
Yes.
Okay. Item C, resolution amending the Kane County financial policies related to travel. I unfortunately was discharging my mother from the hospital at the last executive meeting and heard that this got tossed around for quite a conversation. If I have this correct, our ordinance, not ordinance, but our policy 2-72 travel expense generally. Item C, arbitration. Item 1, any dispute between the traveler and the auditor will be submitted to and resolved by the county board chairman. I believe that is the sticking point that, unless I'm mistaken, but Madam Chair, to be candid, what I am hearing is that would like to strike the word chairman, and that any dispute between the traveler and the auditor will be submitted to be resolved by the county board, not with the chairman. I don't, it's that simple. So, I mean, to open this up for conversation, the amended resolution is just striking the word chairman and leaving that responsibility with the county board. And I will ask for a movement and a second. You can have discussion in just one moment.
Thank you, sir.
Lewis moves.
Second.
Gripe
Carver
seconds.
seconds.
Can I
Now
add
open
some-
for discussion.
Can I add some background, sir?
Yes.
To be clear, there is no amendment pursuant to that ordinance here. What this is the same thing that you passed when we discussed it before. So the changes we are looking at involve the approval process. So that's what was requested of me, that an approval process for board members be implemented in policy. This is a policy, not an ordinance. It cannot change that ordinance that's in front of you. This is just a resolution, changing the policy, adding an approval process for board members for travel expenses. We did not adjust that sentence that Ms. Gums had brought up was an existing part of the policy. And I believe she brought it up just because the policy was open for adjustment and she wanted to adjust that part. The problem is adjusting that would require an ordinance. We do not want to codify all of these changes. These are just policies. So my recommendation for that would be to pass the policy changes in a resolution as presented, and then add an ordinance change if the board's wish is to change that section as a separate function and keep them two separate things, because we really do not want to codify the level of detail that's in here. This is about a policy that is in place that does, Kane County policies affect all employees of Kane County under the jurisdiction of the county board, including the county board members.
So you've lost me. You just
Okay.
went right over my head.
Sorry.
So if I'm being as honest as I can. So the resolution for the travel policy is unchanged. It just got kicked back here, but we're going to kick it right back forward.
It got
The
kicked back here.
problem
yes.
is within our policies, there's some language that they would like changed that has nothing to do with our resolution.
Right. Our resolution is about a different thing than the reason it got kicked back, which is an ordinance issue. If the board would like to change that ordinance, we can certainly draft an ordinance change for that change. But this should continue as a resolution because it's not our intent to put it into ordinance.
Got it. So we're clear. We're voting on exactly what we voted for before, moved upstream. It got kicked back. We're not changing anything because it is a policy change and nothing to do with our travel resolution. So I'm going to ask for approval of the resolution to be put back forward and then consensus to, I see you, Mike, and consensus to direct Jamie to go ahead and write a resolution to change the policy at a later date.
To write an ordinance to change the actual.
What I meant to say. Okay, now, Mr. Linder.
Minor amendment, I'd have been to change the word chairman to chair.
Good.
That apparently, chairman, men,
Is omnibus, I
it
thought.
is,
Yep.
it is, it's in the Constitution, I believe, so.
I just think
It's no-
Okay. Anita,
I just have a question.
because we're at 10:08, so I'm just pushing a little
No,
bit.
you're
Sorry.
good. I understand exactly what we're doing, but
I didn't, sorry.
no, I was at the meeting. I did have a mom that I had discharged. That's what you should have been doing. If we drafted a new ordinance for this, would we have to change all these ordinances that are listed?
John?
Thank you. Thank you.
Perfect.
We have been changing these policies for a better part of 10 to 15 years. We've never really dealt with the ordinance. The ordinance is woefully inadequate at this point. That's why we've relied on the policies. It's really a board discretion. As long as you don't contradict the ordinance, you can set whatever policy you want. When you start to get to a point where the policies have consumed everything around an ordinance, it might be time for the board to consider an ordinance that encapsulates everything, which would enshrine it in law and would give the HR department a lot more authority to enforce it. Whereas resolutions are the whims of the board. An ordinance transcends the boards. So it's something for you all to consider. If you want to keep it in the policy level, know that those policies can change literally the whims of anything changing. But if you want to actually enshrine something here, then you would need to start considering this at the ordinance level.
So at this moment, I would like to call a vote on the travel policy resolution. Once that is voted upon, we will continue some dialogue to give Jamie consensus on the policy change and if we would like to do that. I think those are two separate items. Deb, you're not clear.
Alan, I'm
Alan.
not sure why we can't make the changes at the same time.
Because I think they're two different, I don't, they're like ordering a hot dog and a hamburger. They're two different meals. I mean, they're.
Cliff, if you're gonna view these as two different items, then you can't bring it up today, the second item.
Well, it could come up as asking me to make the change,
It's
and then
just
I would
consensus
present
given
an
to her,
ordinance
not taking
change
a vote.
next month.
My issue is, Oma, you don't have it in the agenda. It has a discussion item. If you view this as two separate items.
We can discuss it next week. That's fine. But the travel policy is, I would like to be voted on and moved back.
If I may, just. for
I'm sorry, move
Oh.
back forward.
clarification, sir. Point of
Madam Chair.
clarification. Thank you. So we're passing potentially, this committee, the resolution for the travel policy.
Correct,
Everything else remains in place.
correct.
And if that is.
And I would have argued that at the exec had I been there, and I apologize for that.
But if everything else is remain in place, stasis, is that fine? There's no issue with passing this forward.
As far as I know of nothing in the language. So as long as this doesn't contradict any of the financial ordinances, there's nothing wrong with
We're
you
good.
continuing to make changes in policy.
Right. And we had discussed this before, and so, okay. Could we call the vote to move the travel policy, the Kane County financial policies related to travel back to finance?
Alan,
Alan, I.
Garcia,
Yeah,
Grape,
Gripe, yes.
Lewis,
Yes, please.
Tarver,
Tarver, yes.
Linder,
Yes.
Surges.
Surges, yes. And Ms. Labrillo, then for our next meeting, could you have on there the striking of that for consideration in the appropriate format and noticed appropriately?
Yes.
Thank you. Item D, establishing an attrition program for the Kane County personnel. Could I have a motion and a second for that before Jamie gives us a detail on that?
Lewis moves.
Lewis? Do we have a second to move this forward, please?
Just second it, Garcia.
I'll
Ms.
second.
Garcia seconds. Jamie, could you please bring us up to speed on what we're doing here?
Certainly. It's in the executive summary with a little detail just so that everybody has it. This resolution is seeking to establish an attrition program with the following terms: an immediate salary freeze for current employees, a hiring freeze whereby an evaluation must be made by a designated panel when a department requests to rehire a vacancy. The evaluation is submitted to the Kane County Board for a rehiring decision. The evaluation group may authorize an immediate rehire without prior board approval in the event of extenuating circumstances or an immediate essential need. Voluntary separation incentive program is also in here, which would, as opposed to something like early retirement incentives, this actually would be available to all employees. So it's just a little more effective. Whereby employees voluntarily separating would receive 4 weeks of severance pay and 4 months of health insurance eligibility for the HMO plan. And in lieu of health insurance, employees could receive a lump sum of $350 a month for each month of health insurance of the 4 months of health insurance that they decline. So that's what's included here. One thing I want to make clear is the part of the hiring freeze that includes the evaluation panel, that is not changed. It did always say that the intent was not for this group to make the decision on whether or not to rehire, but there was a lot of concern that went back and forth from the department heads regarding they want the committees to make this decision, but the committee process is too long. So this evaluation panel is just a way that if it is agreed upon, and this board can establish whoever they want to be that evaluation panel. It's certainly up to this board to make whoever they want to do that. But that you have some process whereby immediate circumstances can be dealt with. Because that's one of the concerns that came from our departments, that they sometimes have immediate situations where the county board process is too long. So that would be able to be dealt with. An example would be like our 911 telecommunicators.
So Jamie, this, I had one question regarding the HMO. So we're going to extend 4 months of HMO, but if you were on the PPO, we wouldn't do that?
That was just our lowest cost health plan, lowest cost to the county health plan.
Okay.
So that's why that was chosen. You
So
certainly
we
could
could
make
extend-
that
okay, I
whatever
gotcha.
you want.
I understand.
Yes.
Okay, so my statement on this is, when this was introduced last month, there was pushback, almost immediate, that I felt was misplaced. That maybe everybody didn't read the packet to its entirety, and I want to take a minute right now to just weed that out and get it done. There is no hypocrisy here. When we talk out of one side of our mouth earlier in this meeting about finding a way to clear a logjam and move stuff out and make it easier, yet the elected, us as 24 elected members, stay in our lane and let our department heads stay in their, executive directors stay in their lane. This ordinance is specific to that. What we suggested was putting together a panel that could help clear a logjam and expedite a process. I personally suggested that that panel, being the two most educated people in the process from the hiring perspective, not the individual being hired, was probably Kathy Hopkinson serving as our financial director and Jamie Labrillo serving as HS, to act as a clearinghouse. And if there was a situation such as we just had, Ms. Gums, with the 911 center that needed something to be expedited, they would have the authority to say, hey, y'all, you need to bump this one up because it is immediate and urgent. Plan seemed fabulous. Somehow the notion got out that I was and I'll take this, that I was personally trying to empower finance and human services as a decision maker at the table. That's not what this says in any way, shape, or form. If that implication was there, I don't know how it got out, because it's not what it says. That never came from me. This is another logjam situation trying to find a way to expedite this. If somebody has something better, bring it forward. If not, could you just give this a 6-month run and let's see how this works? If in 6 months you say, this was the greatest thing since sliced bread, then yay. But if in 6 months you go, this is terrible, that, here's the, we blew this one, I will own that personally. But nothing has, did we tweak anything or change anything on this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there's a great deal changed in it.
Okay,
Yes.
tell me.
There's a great deal changed in
Okay.
it. Yes, it's much different. And then so I read through what's the executive summary there, which is meant to highlight what those changes are, because there are quite a few in there. These ideas were provided to me by the county board chairman, as far as the voluntary separation plan, and all of that. So this is coming from
I'm sorry,
board,
Jamie.
not me.
When
So
I
to make
meant
that clear.
substantive changes to that specific panel, what was my comment? Not as the entire document. I
did not
apologize for that.
I did not change the panel in here. The board certainly should make suggestions to who they want that to be. I have to have something in there.
Yeah,
Those
I'm
amendments are
sorry,
up
just to
you.
be clear, I meant to the panel portion, not to the document, because the document is
It's
much richer
different.
than it was.
Yes, that's
So,
right. I did not change.
right,
I did not change, the panel
the panel,
is certainly,
thank you.
the board should put who they want into that panel, but it needs to have something in it. You certainly should discuss and put whoever you feel is best suited to be that panel.
Okay, Madam Chair?
Turn this back on. In our conversation about subcommittee, if this board decides to move forward with this committee, I would suggest that it does become a formal subcommittee. I also want to make sure that, although I know I read Ms. Labrillo's email that you sent to this committee on March 21st about the potential changes to this part of this issue. And it was very much discussed that this was led with the conversation with our vice chair. But the vice chair's responsibilities have to be designated by the board or by myself. And I don't believe that this function for the vice chair has been designated to that individual yet. I'm not saying that cannot happen, but that has to happen at the board level, just so everybody is clear, my understanding of the description. But I still think that we're getting too much into the weeds. My personal, if I can just divert this a little bit. I passed out the county code again on standing committees. And once again, it is the responsibility of the department head and the chairperson of that committee, along with the committee members, to determine this. And this is going to be another opportunity where it's going to take some time to get through. Perhaps the people are on vacation. Perhaps they've got work and they can't meet at a certain time and they only can meet 2 weeks later. In the meanwhile, we've got people here who are looking forward to hiring somebody and to working towards that logjam, but we've set up another dam for them to get over. So I think this may be, in my opinion, not necessary, especially if the committees do the function and the job that they're supposed to do.
I almost feel opposite, that this is introducing something to fast track that.
I know.
And I'm wondering if we're just reading the same coin from two different sides. You know what I'm saying? Jamie, do you have any input, feelings?
I thought that the intent of the group was to expedite cases under extenuating circumstances. And one of the things that was talked about by the board was wanting to have that detailed information. You know, has someone looked at it if it's a grant position and if we're under a contract to provide that, so we have to fill that position, or if it's grant funded, if the administrative costs associated with the grant are being used effectively to possibly alleviate some of the general fund responsibility, or if there is someone else in the county who can fill this position and move into that special revenue fund so that general fund money can be freed up. So there's so many intricacies to free up the general fund balance that having, and that's again why the involvement of HR and finance, because we have that information on a wider level, to provide an evaluation to the board so that the board members are not digging into these details and they have a consistent set of information that's provided to them, an evaluation that's submitted to the committee so that they have that background information that may exceed, for example, their committees. You know, if it's another department that can shift someone in or something, I don't know. I'm just trying to come up with everything that could happen to provide that evaluation to the board so that they have the necessary information to make good decisions.
Is it fair to say that it was our thought process, meaning yours and mine in conversation, that the panel could just work faster than the 30-day committee process?
Yes, that is why
that was
it says, and it said, you know, from the beginning that panel would meet within 30 days of a department head's request to fill that position and provide
so that department
that
says
evaluation.
jump, we say how high and how fast to get this moved out and say, here's the log jam. This is what we're needed. Oops, this one's over budget. Here's the other considerations that need to go. Oops, this one's a grant process. These are the hoops you need to go through it. Oops. And then that's provided right back to the host committee or finance committee or wherever that needs to go. But the intention is to expedite, not to stifle.
Yes, certainly the evaluation panel can just provide that detail to the board, and you can have this required to go through the board process without the evaluation panel having the opportunity to expedite in certain circumstances. You can certainly just have it always go to the board if you want. I still would recommend that you have an evaluation prepared by someone so that the board has the detailed information they need to make a good choice. Because if you establish an attrition program and voluntary separation and do not put something on it, you're just going to have all the positions refilled, and this will cost you money, not save you money. So the whole goal is to shrink the staff. So at some point, someone needs to be putting some kind of controls on that. So ultimately, you have to have someone making the decision which positions to rehire, because if you think you can rehire none of them, that's just not realistic. We have some essential positions in this county. There are circumstances that may exist that we have to fill some of those positions. The goal in attrition is to not fill all of them, to fill, you know, and it'll be up to the board to decide how much money you want to save. So how many to replace, what percentage, but some will need to be replaced. And so the board can certainly be that factor making that decision, but I would still recommend you have some kind of evaluation in front of you when you make that decision so that you can make good decisions about which positions to rehire.
Okay, and Jamie, I started this soliloquy. Started this monologue. I can, actually. But a monologue is when you're speaking to a group and a soliloquy is when you're speaking to yourself. So I started this monologue by saying that I thought there was a perception that we were trying to empower, and I'll be specific, you and Kathy in a decision-making process. Is there anything that we put in writing that bolsters that? Because that's just not the facts. That's just not what we were trying to do.
It's not what we were trying to do. We were trying to build in a method to expedite. So certainly if that's not amenable to the board, or if you have another method to expedite, please feel free to make the necessary changes. That approval process was meant to expedite some emergency situations, and anything that wasn't one of those emergency situations would still move on to the board.
Any committee members with question or comment? Mr. Gripe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We're at 25 after. Let's try and wrap up within 10 here.
Okay. I appreciate this. I see this as lubrication, not more gears. So using my analogy.
Thank you, sir.
I think that's good. I'm wondering if I see two tools in this same, summary. One being the hiring freeze, the other being a voluntary separation program. And if this new group, however it's designated, who's ever's on it, can they use those two tools independently? In other words, if they feel that a voluntary separation incentive program would do well for the county, they could use that one way. And if they see a hiring freeze, well, the hiring freeze is what it is, but the attrition part of it used a different way, is that possible?
I would just caution you that if you include a voluntary separation plan without some kind of limitation on the rehiring, that plan could cost you money instead of save you money. So I would keep them, whatever this board decides it wants to do for an attrition plan, if it wants an attrition plan at all, to have it be one program, just to ensure that you don't have a situation where you're paying out all of these separation incentives just to rehire the positions.
Thank you.
Any other members of the committee?
Yeah, sorry. So
Thank you, Mike.
I'll be super quick. So a couple years ago, we did an attrition program at the Forest Preserve.
I think we did Forest Preserve and Sheriff's Office, maybe?
Yeah, I don't remember, but Forest Preserve for sure. And they laid it out, and, considering it was mostly, age related, most of it. And before we ever even talked about it, they had, we saw documents of potentially who might be doing this and what it would cost up front and what it could potentially save. So I think throwing it in this document kind of doesn't do what we want it to do, because
If I can, and I'll get this wrong, the Forest Preserve did an early retirement plan. And that was, of course, based on years of service, stuff like that. This is not an early retirement plan. This gives you don't need to be in an age group. You don't need to be at a certain tenure. You don't need to, Jamie, am I fundamentally, and so
Yes, that's correct. So ERI, early retirement incentive, is done through IMRF. The board would need to pass a resolution asking IMRF for an estimate, and IMRF would provide that estimate. Early retirement does disproportionately hit your management and fail to hit some of your front line, because it is only people that are retirement eligible. So an attrition program would be more robust by offering it to everyone, would give more opportunities to accelerate that attrition. Certainly early retirement is an option to you too, but early retirement is more expensive than this.
yeah. So Anita, we absolutely, I don't even think that you and I discussed this privately, but this has been brought up, and Madam Chair asked me, what did I think of this? And I said, unfortunately, if I remember correctly, when we looked just 3 or 4 years ago at an early retirement situation, the numbers were not robust for us at the county level. And so we said, let's go in different direction, similar, but something that's a wider net to try and put together. And that's what this is attempting to do.
Okay. So would this be, I guess I'm confused. Would this be countywide that we'd go to the whole county and say anybody who wants to take a voluntary separation incentive plan? Or is this by department or
This would be for
I'm a
your
little
county
confused.
departments under the jurisdiction of the county board. Whether or not your elected officials would like to offer something like that is entirely within their internal control. For example, the sheriff a couple of years ago did offer an incentive program himself that the only thing that the elected officials would need is the county's approval to change the health eligibility. So that would require the county board's approval since the health plan does belong to the county board. But certainly the elected officials could do this if they wanted to, because it is entirely within their internal control. So this resolution would just be for your county departments, because your elected officials can manage attrition however they would like.
Madam Chair, and then Ms. Bates.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to go back to the panel. And Mr. Frank pointed this out, and I would agree with him wholeheartedly. I'm on page 2, and I'm going to go to page 3 of the document. It is the.
Can you speak into that mic a
I
little
am
more?
starting from the third to the last. Now therefore be it resolved, if you'd like to follow along. Now therefore be it resolved by the King County Board that an attrition program is hereby put into place effective immediately, requiring that no employee be hired by Kane County without an evaluation by the evaluation panel. And now therefore be it resolved by the Kane County Board that the evaluation panel must meet as needed to conduct an evaluation at the request of the department head no later than 1 month of the date the request is made. And now therefore be it resolved by the Kane County Board that effective immediately, no employee be hired by Kane County without either the approval of the majority vote of the evaluation panel or approval of the full Kane County Board. By having the approval of the majority of the vote of a evaluation panel made up of 4 people, 2 of which are employees, you've all of a sudden negated the authority that is set forth in the county code by the standing committee.
To be clear, that's just a method to expedite it. Everything can go to the full board.
But you cannot have the evaluation committee of 2 employees make a decision and determination to take a vote of whether or not another employee can be hired, in my opinion.
Mr. Chair, could I clarify that?
Ms. Juby?
Basically, what you're doing is you're reallocating the authority of the standing committees and giving it to 4 individuals, 2 of which are at the same level of the people that are actually coming forward. So not only are you asking 2 employees to make decisions, but this entire policy is removing authority from a committee and giving it to a random group of 4. And I know I've made my comments before that this is our job, but to take our job away from us and give it to someone else is not a good way to proceed. And Madam Chair is correct. When you start pitting executive directors against each other, even if that was never your intent, and I'm sure it never was, but the unintended consequences of this go way deeper than us to be able to have a discussion in 5 minutes and pass this forward. While I am not on this committee, I would strongly suggest that you do not pass this forward until you have the ability to have a more robust conversation about the unintended consequences, because they're very, very deep.
So I believe Mr. Gripe is motioning to table to the next meeting.
Am I?
I believe you are, sir.
Okay, sure. I'd love to table this thing.
Okay, Mr.
Oh,
Chairman,
I'm sorry, postpone.
Vote.
Mr. Chairman, my hand's getting tired.
Well, we need to.
I'm sorry, I see you in 2 different places on screen.
Okay, yeah, I'm on my computer and on my phone. But I
Okay.
would like a chance to just make a comment, please.
Okay, Ms. Bates.
Okay, all right, this discussion today. makes
Wait,
me-
Ms. Bates, hang on one second. Are we, do you trump? Is the motion to postpone trumping any other further dialogue?
There was no second.
No second.
There's not been a second yet, but if there is a second, then yes, it would trump.
Ms. Lewis seconds. Ms. Bates, I do apologize. We have postponed this to the next thing, to the next meeting.
I waited
Um,
10 minutes with my hand up.
Sorry.
Ms. Bates, go ahead, please.
Thank you. As far as I can tell from this conversation, we wasted a lot of pizza. Because at the special meeting, it was very much the consensus of that special meeting in my mind, in my hearing, that this evaluation panel should go away. Ms. Juby and many of the other members and non-members of the special committee made it clear that this is a job for the standing committees. 1 month later, we're supposed to wait for a candidate to wait 1 month before this panel even meets. That's not expediting. That's putting the brakes on. And that's all I'll say for now. I will wait till next.
Mavis,
week
I'm
to
more
say the rest.
comfortable with that saying 10 days, but it's,
It says a month.
I know what it says. I would move that to 10 days. The point is to expedite, then expedite. And if we
Okay.
need to make an adjustment to some notion that it carries, weight of pitting an employee, of one department head against another, I'm
Yes.
kind of okay if the department heads is the person in the finance department that has I'm sorry,
would
we've
you
already
say
had a
that? Why
motion
would
and
you
are not
say-
in discussion. So call the vote to table or postpone, please.
Thank you.
Alan,
We're voting to postpone?
postpone.
Postpone.
Aye.
Garcia,
Garcia, I.
Grape.
Aye.
Lewis,
Yes.
Tarver. Mr. Tarver, or did he leave? I'm sorry. And Surges.
Yes.
Is postponed. Can I make a request, Mr. Surges? We possibly, I'm very not comfortable adjusting this and speaking to it. It's not my place. I keep being asked to make adjustments to this and present it when I really don't think it's my place to present it. I would very much like if a committee would meet and discuss, do you want an evaluation? Who should make that evaluation? I get a lot of, it shouldn't be these people, and that's fine. I don't disagree. Somebody please say who you want me to put in there. Say what time frame you want on it. This is meant to be put forward for this board, this committee to discuss what you want it to look like. When you postpone it and it comes back, it keeps coming back, but no one has made any suggestions to what they want me to put in it. So I would like to hear the board provide some color around what they want it to be, or take it upon themselves to make the next version. And we will simply type it into the system for you, because it's really not a staff position to come up with this.
Jamie, I appreciate that so very much. I did, on behalf of, just transparency, I did send an email to Madam Chair earlier this week saying that, with the failure of the referendum, we really need to get, some processes in line that have teeth, I believe was my exact words, that have teeth behind them to help govern ourselves. I know there's been comments that was an inappropriate email to send to Madam Chair, that Madam Chair and I are on bad paper with each other right now. Madam Chair and I met yesterday and said, are we okay? And she said, we're fine. So you know what? I won't apologize for saying it's time for us to get a little bit tough. And Jamie, thank you for having the fortitude to say, quit using me like a ping pong ball. Just give me direction and let me know what you want. But I'm hearing it loud and clear that while we've added quite a bit to this, it is the panel discussion, and I'm happy to take that offline with you to see what we can craft. So.
Make it really
And thank you. Take it offline, but I would suggest that you really poll your members of this committee, decide what they would like to have and what they think would be best practices.
I'm very good at that, ma'am. So I will
Thank you.
I will exercise that. Yes. Okay. Mr. Gripe, did you have something else on this or?
Well, it's related to this. Could we, to do everything that everybody's talking about here, somehow get a meeting of this committee as soon as possible to talk about the postponement and the other details that Jamie just, everybody, I don't know how we do that, but if we could do.
John, if you'll allow me some latitude to have some personal conversations with each of the committee, I'll try and craft those into a document. We'll bring that document forward. If we think that we need to get together from there, we'll do that. John, I understand that I can't do this in a committee session, but one-on-one, we could happily do that and then disseminate that out. And I think that would be the most expeditious because we could probably do that by Friday.
Okay.
Because I do think we're under an urgency here.
Yes,
So
thank you.
Ms. Gums, did you have? And then that will be it. Yeah.
I just want to say, I noted earlier that Mr. Linder had suggested that directors bring forth any new terminations to their standing committee. Getting back to the jobs of what the standing committees are, I don't agree with the panel at all. I think your solution is more and more simple than we even understand. If there's an imminent responsibility for our directors to hire somebody, nothing prevents any committee from holding a special meeting. And it's a 2-day notice, and it's literally very, very easy to do that. Maybe inconvenient for the board, but it's dumbs it down for us. I don't think that anybody would have.
We are
that
trying
problem.
to find a way to make this expeditious and
Right.
clear
So
this
a
out, but
special
stay
meeting
within the
with a
rules.
committee that you already have takes 2 days to notice.
I don't
That's
have any
it.
problem having a special meeting, young
Okay.
lady. You know.
Point
that.
of order, we already moved this to next month, so if you guys could just have the discussions, because we have to have them, but we got to move on.
Perfect. Do we need to place reports on file if we did not have reports other than the financial report? We still need to. Deb?
Absolutely. Alan moves that we approve the financial report.
Unanimous.
Unanimous consent to place reports on
Unanimous
file?
consent for.
And all in favor?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
I don't see any executive session needed. John, or Sonia, motion to adjourn?
Sonia. I.
Gripe seconds.
Second.